Hi, this is Julia. Welcome to the YouTube channel, Brotherhood of Light Current. Chris is going to be our host today. This is his new show. It's called Chris's Concert Experiences, 1965 to 1990. Okay, Chris, take it away.
Okay, folks, welcome to the YouTube channel. Anyway, so what we got is a new show. It's going to be based on the my rock concert experience. And most people know me from Brotherhood of Light. I did light shows with the Allman Brothers and the Allman family from 1990 to current. But right now, we're going to see the stuff I did before the Allman Brothers when I was basically just a spectator. I did light shows on the side as kind of a hobby. Okay, so let's go to screen share here. We're going to get the show going. Let's go to here. Okay, share. And there we go. Okay, so we've got, this is going to be 3 episodes, and it's going to be 1, 2, and 3. It's going to be 50 bands per episode. It's going to be a visual, and it's going to be me explaining my experience that I experienced when I went to these concerts. So let's go to the next slide. Okay, so part 1 is going to be 1965 to 1972. Now, if you're 55 years old in the audience here, and you probably were too young to go to these concerts. So one of the reasons I'm doing the show is to let people see these concerts that I experienced when I was, well, let's go to the first one. Here we go. So this is where it all started for me. I'm going to get my laser pointer going just in case we can use it. All right. So here we go. Laser pointer. All right. So this run right here is Hard Day's Night. Okay. I was 9 years old, and my cousin Lisa and her 4 13-year-old girlfriends took me to Hard Day's Night. And I just fell in love with the Beatles. About a month later, I talked my mother into going to see the Beatles. And so she to go see Hard Day's Night. And so then she bought 2 tickets to the Beatles when they were going to play at the Cow Palace. And so here is the Cow Palace show right here. So here's a great story about the Cow Palace. So me and my mom, I'm 10 years old. We drive up in her Ford Falcon, and we're on Alamany Boulevard, and we stop. There's a police thing stops us, and we're at the backstage entrance to the Cow Palace. And there's about 50 teenage girls kind of waiting by this gate. And all of a sudden, and then up at the main entrance, there's like 100 girls. And that's where we're trying to drive into the Cow Palace, where the parking lot is. And all of a sudden, this police escort limo comes flying up the middle lane. They get the lanes blocked off, and it goes up, and the girls start running up the sidewalk, just like in the Hard Day's Night, where they're chasing the Beatles down the street. The same thing. And so, it's just mayhem up there at the entrance. So all of a sudden, out of this ghetto neighborhood, this limo comes pulling out, and we're like the first car, and it just pulls right in front of us. And there I'm looking right at the Beatles. 2 of them are looking at the window at me and my mom, and I'm like this 10-year-old kid. And then they just scoot right up that back gate. And there's a scene in Hard Day's Night where the same thing happens, where they're in the car and people are looking at them, same thing. It's really weird. So this is really Beatlemania. So now we enter the Cow Palace. We're in there, and I'm like 10 years old. And there's all teenage girls, like 80%. And there's this heavy, like, sexual vibe in the room. Okay. And I'm like not really in tune with that yet in my life, right? So I'm looking at these girls going, wow, just something about them. They're just oozing this sexual energy. And so all of a sudden, all the light, this band comes on, and it's a black performer, and it was King Curtis. And I had never seen anybody, any music, anything in my life. So it's the first show I ever saw was King Curtis, and they just ignored him. They were just rude. And so then all the lights are on. There's like no stage lighting. It's just like a basketball or a wrestling match was going on, just all the practical lights are on. And all of a sudden, the Beatles come on stage. So let's go to the next shot here. So the Beatles come on stage, and as you can see, this is the actual concert, and Ringo's up here in this riser, and the girls just get out of their seats and just attack the stage. Just shocking. I was like, whoa. And so then the screams and the flash bulbs, and it's just flash bulbs and screams just going off, right? And you could barely hear the band. You could sort of hear the song they're playing. So now here they are playing over here in this shot. And so now the girls, the screams kind of go down, the flash bulb kind of get all burnt up. And so now they start taking stuff out of their purse, and you can see the crowd up here there, and they start throwing stuff on the stage. And you can see all this garbage landing on the stage. I mean, they're just like everything out of their purse. They're just like heaving at the Beatles. And this one thing, man, I was like, so I'm sitting here, and so like this is kind of where I was sitting, and I just saw this thing fly over and land right, boom, and bounce off Ringo's head. This big chrome thing. I have no idea what it was. So then I have this other fond memory where this guy, this like 19-year-old dude or whatever, 18-year-old guy, jumps up on stage and grabs John Lennon's cap. And there's John Lennon, and there's the guy grabbing his cap. I can't believe I found a picture of it. It's just amazing. So, and he jumps off, and look at all the people. You can just see their eyes staring at the stage. I mean, it's just an amazing picture. And you can see all the garbage on the stage again. I mean, it's just littered. So now the next thing is this concert's getting towards the end, and these girls start coming up, and they start flopping around on the stage and passing out. And I'm like, I have no idea what an orgasm is, or I don't know if they're faking an orgasm, but they're certainly orgasming and passing out. And these security guys are having to carry them off, which you can see in the shots. It was just crazy. But anyway, that's Beatlemania. So for all you folks that didn't get to see him, so I'm a 10-year-old kid. Okay, so now I really didn't go to any concerts until I was about 13, and the first concerts I went to were at the Rec Center in San Bruno. But the first real concert I went to, this girl in my first period art class talked me and Frank Long into hitchhiking up with her and her girlfriend in San Francisco to Golden Gate Park, to the free concert at Speedway Meadows, and the Jefferson Airplane are playing. This is like a flatbed truck. Well, no, that's actually staged, but they're playing. And this is the Grateful Dead playing. And this is the scene. The center shot is what it was like. And it was just wild and crazy. And this is Jefferson Airplane, Surrealistic Pillow. So that was really the first big band I ever saw. And then the other band that played in my local high school and played at Speedway was the Sons of Champlin, which are a really great progressive rock, jazz, funk band. I mean, they're just amazing. They're way ahead of their time. But the main thing about them was it was just a little too advanced for like hit radio, It's like FM radio music. But if you ever get a chance, check them out. Bill Champlin went on to play and sing for Chicago, the band Chicago. And then this is Crazy Horse, this top right corner band. And they played at my local rec center. And that's where the Temporary Optic Light Show did their light show. And that was the Neil Young's band that I got to see. So now we're going to move on to my first concert I went to at the Fillmore West, which was Chicago Transit Authority. And you can see they're this big giant band here with all these horns. And they have 3 lead singers. And Terry Caff is almost like a Jimi Hendrix, this guitar player right here. He's just amazing. And this is their album, Chicago Transit Authority, and that's him right there. And then the other act was the Youngbloods, and they did this album, Elephant Mountain, which was also kind of a progressive album, wasn't a pop album. And then the other band was Colosseum from England, and they were a total progressive jazz rock band. So right off the bat, I was exposed to this really intense music, more like prog or progressive rock than basic rock. Okay, so now one of my favorite bands when I was 13 was Country Joe and the Fish. So the next concert I went to was Country Joe and the Fish with Albert King. He's the left-handed guitar player there, and a band from England called Bloodwind Pig, and that was the lead guitarist had quit Jethro Tull and formed his own band, and that's the logo on the right. That's her album cover. So that was another great show for me. And there's a light show on this album cover, which is what I do for a living now. So it's pretty cool. Like maybe I was impressed by the light show more than the music. The Country Joe was really psychedelic at the time. The next act we went to was, well, I'm just going to start with Mountain. They were sort of like the opening band, and they were just on fire. And then Johnny Winter came out and actually blew them away. And Edgar Winter was with him. They were doing the second Winter album. And then Wes, Bruce, and Lane. I mean, no, Jack, Bruce, and Friends, which was Mitch Mitchell, which was Jimi Hendrix's drummer, and Larry Coryell was a jazz rock guitar player. But I'll get a picture of them next. So Jack Bruce was in Cream, and this is Cream with Ginger Baker and Eric Clapton. And then they had Mitch Mitchell on drums, who's probably the next best drummer to Baker. And then Larry Coryell on guitar, who's like a jazz fusion guitar player. And they were really good. I mean, it was really amazing, but the band didn't last very long. And they just really didn't stand up to Johnny Winter or Mountain. Okay, so the next show I went to was this one, was at Winterland. It was Jefferson Airplane, Grateful Dead, Hot Tuna, New Riders, and Quicksilver Messenger Service. And here's the Grateful Dead up here, and they played a lot of stuff from this Live Dead album and this Oxa album, and I just got turned on to them. I didn't like them before that when I was younger, but now I'm like 14 years old and I really dug it. Now my other favorite band in San Francisco was Quicksilver Messenger Service. So that was the next show I went to. This is John Cipollina, their guitar player. There's a light show behind them, Quicksilver's first album cover. Here's the actual poster from the show. And Mott the Hoople was the middle liner. Silver Meter was the opener. And Brotherhood of Light was a light show. So I got to see my own light show company. Now, the next slide is a real fortunate situation. I got to see Sly and the Family Stone. And this is after Woodstock, and they were huge. And they didn't play a lot at the Bill Graham venues. They only did one show, one weekend at Winterland and one in Fillmore West early on in 68. But this was around 69, 70. And they played down at Stanford. And I got to see Sly and the Family Stone. And he was late. Took him hours to get there, but it was worth the wait. And they are probably the best funk rock band that ever walked the earth. I mean, they were just amazing. Their albums are amazing. Their songs are amazing. And then the local band that I saw that played a lot of the film was Tower of Power. And they were from my area in the Bay. And then I also saw John Mayall with this Turning Point album, which is just a great album. And then Herbie Hancock was one of the openers for that act. For the John Mayall night. So it's pretty amazing to see. It's kind of more soul and funk here. But now we're going to take a complete right turn. And this is Love, James Gang, and Black Sabbath. Now, this is the first Black Sabbath tour in 1970. And they were the opener at the Fillmore. And then Joe Walsh of Eagles fame is James Gang is his band, and they had James Gang Rides Again. And then Arthur Lee and Love were the headliner, and Robert Plant loves Arthur Lee. It's one of his favorite. He covers a lot of his stuff in his solo projects. So that was, now we're starting to get into the hard rock here. And this next one, we finally got our cars. We can drive around, and we drove to Oakland Coliseum. And we saw Led Zeppelin, and it was a Led Zeppelin 3 tour, and it was 1970, and they did an acoustic set, and this is an actual picture from that concert, and you can see there's no stage lighting, it's just all overhead lights, and they had this huge video crew and these giant video projectors. So I got to see Led Zeppelin 3, and then the next following couple of weeks later, I got to see Jeff Beck. I was a huge Jeff Beck fan, and he's got Cozy Powell on drums. And I can't remember the name of the singer, but Max Middleton is the keyboard player. And it was the Rough and Ready tour. Okay, we're going to move on next. Okay, so the show on the left, this Paul Butterfield blues band, Buddy Miles, and Quatermass. And to tell you the truth, Quatermass stole the show. And Paul Butterfield did not have Mike Bloomfield or Elvin Bishop playing guitar, and they were this horn band. And then Buddy Miles was kind of doing a Chitlin circuit and kind of a feedback Jimi Hendrix thing. And the audience just wasn't buying it at Fillmore. They were way too mature for his show. But the following week, we went and saw Grand Funk Railroad and Blood Rock, which is complete opposite. And this was during when they were just a three-piece and they didn't have the keyboard player and they weren't wearing all silky clothes. They were just like a rock band from Detroit that just kicked ass and played, basically covered this live album. And the following couple of weeks after that, I went and saw Fleetwood Mac, the Killing House tour, and that was at the Fillmore West, and that was with Crimson Madness Light Show, which we just did a show on last week. Okay, so then I was a huge Johnny Winter fan from seeing him the previous year. So we went and saw Johnny Winter, and I was turned on the first time to Jay Geils band. And they were just these kind of greasy dudes from Boston. And I was just not used to that, being a hippie from San Francisco. But his Johnny Winter and live tour, and they were just, as usual, just shredding. Guitar player, him and Rick Derringer. And Jay Giles was also really good. They just kind of had that bluesy thing going. So now we're going to move on to the next one. Okay, so here you can see this poster. We got Led Zeppelin sold out. Well, my friend was in the record store. He got second row seats at Berkeley Community Theater, like a 3,000 seat theater, Led Zeppelin. And this is actually from Berkeley, according to the picture in 71. And Jimmy Page had a beard during the show. Remember, in all these photos, he's got a beard on. And this was Led Zeppelin 4, Stairway to Heaven, and all that stuff. And now there's a bunch of shows coming up on this poster that I saw. So there was Black Sabbath with Edgar Winter. There was the Allman Brothers with Duane Allman. There was Grand Funk Railroad, which we just saw. Jeff Beck, which we just saw, and The Who. So, I mean, here I am, like a 16-year-old kid, and you're going to go to those shows because they're all killer bands. So this was the Black Sabbath show, and I just did a little psychedelic, and they now are a little bit more, rock and roll, and they were the headliners, and they had Masters of Reality was the record. So that was, really awesome to see Black Sabbath, their second tour. And then this is the Allman Brothers with Duane Allman, and here he is with Tiki Betts playing, and there's a light show at Fillmore East, and this was on let's see, October 8th, and October 17th was his last show he ever played, and on around the 29th of October he was killed in a motorcycle accident. So got really lucky to see him. Okay, we're going to move on to the next one. It's going to be Edgar Winter with Ronnie Montrose. And this was the Frankenstein tour. And, or They Only Come Out at Night. And then Humble Pie Smoking Tour with Steve Marriott. And I think it's Clem Clemson's the other guitar player. And they were just, the rock and the Fillmore album material. Really great. Next show I went to was the Small Faces at Berkeley Community Theater with Savoy Brown and the Grease Band, which is Joe Cocker's backup band. And the Faces, there's probably one of the best shows. They just were so energetic and rock and roll and just so much fun. They were great. And then The Who, San Francisco Civic, there's The Who's next tour. And they were wearing Townsend was wearing the white jumpsuit like in Woodstock, and he was just, all over the place. And they did that whole album, and, Magic Bus and all that stuff. They're incredible. Now, my next show, I went camping one weekend, and I met this guy at the campfire, and he's like, hey man, if you like Led Zeppelin, you like Black Sabbath, you got to go see Deep Purple. So I went, and they were Black Oak, Arkansas opened up for them, and I was not impressed. But Deep Purple literally blew my mind. They were just incredible. This was about 6 weeks before they recorded this album made in Japan, and I really believe this was the height of this band's. They were just on fire. Richie Blackmore was just incredible. I mean, and it wasn't like he's a showman, but it wasn't like he was posing. They were so into it, and they were such great musicians and they were driving so hard that it was just the realest thing you could imagine, and the most exciting concert I think I've ever been to. So let's move on to the next one. So now Dave Mason had this album Alone Together. He played at Winterland with Tower of Power, once again our local guys. And then the following week, I went and saw Winterland BB King and Freddie King with Copperhead and Herbie Hancock. So, it's more the blue. Now I've seen all three Kings. So that was fantastic. All right. So the following couple of weeks later, the Rolling Stones put out Exile on Main Street, and tickets went on sale. And we showed up at 6 a.m. at the Sears, and we waited till they opened the door at 7:30 or 8 or whatever it was, and we just ran into the Bass Ticketmaster office area, and I was about the eighth person. I was about the fifth person around the corner, right? And then all these people crowded in around me, and then finally the people from Sears go, "We're going to hand out numbers." So I got number 12, but I was really the fifth person in there. Should have had number 5. And so by the time I got my tickets, the nighttime shows, there was 4 shows, the 2 nighttime shows were sold out, and I got an afternoon show. Was able to buy 4 tickets. And by the time we got it together, my friends came in, I gave them the tickets and the money and everything. It hit number 24, and it was sold out. So here's this show. It's incredible. So the Rolling Stones, Winterland Auditorium, June 6th and 8th, and I'm about to graduate from high school at this point. And the opening act was Stevie Wonder, and he was just fantastic. I mean, he just blew my mind how great he was. And so that was, really lucky to see the Rolling Stones in a 5,000 seat venue on the Exile on Main Street tour. And I was really in love with Sticky Fingers, that album. So next we're going to go to, during that spring, I saw the Grateful Dead a couple times at Winterland. They were our local band, and they were our house band, and we would go there, and it was always be a good crowd, and there'd be a lot of, fun people, and a good time always had, and they played great music. And so throughout my concert experience, you'll see quite a few Grateful Dead situations. Then one weekend I went and saw Hot Tuna with Yorma and Jack and Papa John, the violin player. And then I graduated from high school, and the next night or 2 nights later, I went and saw Jethro Tull, Thick as a Brick, an Aqualung tour. And the opening act was the Eagles, the original Eagles. And, so I got to see the original Eagles and then Jethro Tull. And that was in Oakland Coliseum, which is a, 15,000 seat basketball arena. And they had a real theatrical light show going, and it was like almost like a play. Tull, that he was, really good. And so here's Hot Tuna playing at the Winterland, and here's the Grateful Dead playing at the Fillmore. Here's Ian Anderson from that, I don't know, that tour. That's what he looked like at that time. And here's Hot Tuna playing with the light show. And so at this point, I am 17 years old. I hadn't even turned 18. And I saw all those shows. And there's 50 different artists that we just went through. So I'm going to go back here to my intro slide, and I'm going to go back to back to me. And okay, so all you folks, I want you to tune in. We're going to run this show, and a week later, I'm going to run episode 2, and a week after that, I'm going to run episode 3. So I'm going to sign off right now, and I hope you guys enjoyed my concert experience. And I'm trying to make a little bit of a shorter show, and I think I did it. So thanks for everybody tuning to Brotherhood of Light Show Current. Signing off.